That is a funny word, discipline. It still brings to mind, wait till your father gets home. Would send sheer panic through the four boys. But really, there are things that we do, as I started this morning, there are things that we do out of sheer discipline that end up becoming hobbies or habits, or maybe even obsessions. I mean, some of you like to eat healthy, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to eat sugar, I'm not going to eat processed foods, I'm going to eat more vegetables, I'm not going to eat red meat, and it becomes a habit, it becomes for some an obsession, but then it eventually becomes a lifestyle. I know for me that's how running started. And running for me really began as a discipline, and I don't mean the good kind. I played football all growing up through high school, and running was the punishment. If you were not behaving in practice or you did not do well at practice, they'd go whack. My favorite was when the coach would say, start running until I get tired. Then he'd pull up a chair and sit down. He didn't tire easily watching us run. But I know that it has become, for me, running a habit. Some would say, like my wife would say, maybe an obsession. And it just didn't start out one day with me waking up and saying, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to run 26 miles. I couldn't even walk a mile when I started running 6 years ago. And it really was a discipline. I downloaded an app, Couch to 5K, that every morning I dragged myself out of bed and I would walk around our neighborhood with little short spurts of runs until I had worked up to being able to just run continuously for 30 minutes. I got like half a mile. And it was just disciplining myself over and over again until I could run that 3 miles and then 10 and then 13 and then 26. But we so often think of that word discipline as a bad thing. There are those things that we know we ought to do, but we really don't want to do. Go to bed earlier, get up earlier, eat less, eat healthier, exercise more, spend less, save more, spend more time with your kids or your spouse or your family, find more time to spend by yourself. But discipline doesn't have to be a negative thing. There are positive aspects to discipline. 4 things that I've learned about discipline. Discipline always results in progress. If you are consistently doing something over and over again, you will make progress in that area. Discipline results in freedom. If you are disciplined in your finances, you can experience financial freedom. In your health, freedom in health, freedom in relationships. Discipline results in a good feeling. I mean, people talk about a runner's high. I have never, ever experienced that. But I do feel good when I'm finished. Probably because I'm finished. But it's also just that feeling of I didn't want to get up, I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to run, but man, I feel so much better now that I've done it. Discipline is beneficial regardless of our attitudes. So essentially, discipline, I think, is doing what you ought to do so that you can do what you want to do. It's doing what you ought to do so you can do what you want to do. I want to run long distances, so I know I ought to run a lot of shorter distances. It's kind of like delayed gratification. If I want to do this, I got to do all of this in between. Now, how that relates is for the last 3 weeks, we have been talking about the 5 things God uses to grow our faith. And God wants our faith to grow because that's at the essence of our relationship with God. It's a relationship that's built not on fear or obligation. It's a relationship that is built on the fact that God can be trusted. And so when people share the story of how their faith has grown, one component that they always mention are specific practices, specific spiritual disciplines that they found intimidating at first. Things like participating in a small group for the first time, or giving to the church for the first time, or opening their Bible for the first time. They found them intimidating at first, but they also mentioned that how these practices help their faith grow. And if you want your faith to be healthy, if you want your faith to grow, then discipline is required. There are certain things we have to do in order to exercise our faith muscles. Again, the only example I have in my life is running, because it's basically all I do. And it is more than just going out and running. There are different types of runs that I do that build different muscles in my body. I do speed workouts, which build my breathing capacity. I run up and down hills. I don't know why. It's painful. But they build different muscles in your legs. And so if we want to exercise our faith muscles, there are different things that we need to do. Things that Jesus kind of laid out in the first 4 books of the New Testament. We're going to look at a reading from Matthew as Sherry mentioned. Matthew was a follower and friend of Jesus, and he shares those things he remembers about his time with Jesus. And this morning in chapter 6, he shares Jesus teaching about the importance of spiritual disciplines. And in this reading, Jesus sets up the conversation or the discussion this way. He just tells the crowd, I'm going to talk to you about some specific things. Things that are private things. Things that you're not supposed to do to get attention. But if you do these things privately and consistently, God will see you doing it. So follow along as we hear from Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them. For then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. And when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. When you are praying, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. So in this reading from Matthew, Jesus is connecting these acts of piety, these private acts of spiritual discipline now with rewards later. And the two that he highlights in Matthew are praying and giving. And these two probably elicit the most emotions from people. They elicit the most emotions when preachers talk about them because we consider them to be private and taboo. Pastor, don't tell me how to pray. Don't tell me how to give. It's between me and God. And I agree with you. So this isn't me telling you anything. I'm just highlighting the words Jesus says. So if you get uncomfortable, talk to Him about it. Oh wait, that's great. So he highlights giving because the type of giving Jesus is describing in Matthew was considered public giving. It's what was called almsgiving, and it usually took place outside of the temple or in the streets. And the poor would line up, beggars would line up, and people would actually just walk down the rows and determine who they felt was the neediest, and they gave as they wished, and some made a spectacle about it so that they could be seen. Because this was over and above the individual's tithe. Their tithe went to maintain the temple and to pay the priests, so this was more public than that, and everyone could see that you were giving, and those who wanted to feel superior to others would make sure not only that you saw them giving, you would see how much they were giving. this passage, Jesus is connecting this financial generosity with the reward. So think for a minute. What would happen to your giving if you really believe that God sees it and rewards it? Now, I know some of our first thoughts are we shouldn't be giving to get a reward, but forget that for a moment. Just think, what if God saw and rewarded accordingly? What would happen to your generosity? See, when it comes to giving, if you're like the average American, giving is basically a trigger response to when we see a need. I see a need, I'm going to give. I see a need, I'm going to give. Oh, I don't see a need there, so I'm not going to give there. But that's not what I'm talking about. The giving that Jesus is talking about isn't about helping anybody. The giving, the percentage giving, the priority giving that Jesus is talking about is an expression of faith. Would you be as generous in private with no one watching as you are when you get all the credit? That's what Jesus is saying. Giving isn't about the person receiving. Giving is about the heart of the giver. Giving isn't about meeting needs, it's about the condition of the giver's heart and the condition of the giver's faith. Now for me, giving financially stretches my faith. Because for me, it means letting go of that which I tend to put more trust in than I do in God. For me, giving financially is the most tangible means that I can think of that shows I'm swamping my dependence. I'm not going to depend solely on this, so I can depend more on God. And the reward isn't money in return, although there are some in my profession who will tell you otherwise. No, the real reward is knowing that God will provide. The real reward is if I will step out in faith, I know God will be faithful. And I can't say that it happens in everyone's life. All I can do is speak for myself, but I know when my wife and I began tithing, something happened. I do all the books at home, and my wife would literally leave the house when I paid bills. Because I got frustrated, and I got angry, and I got upset because I just didn't know where it was all going to come from. And some way, somehow, when we began putting God first, that began to subside. At least until the credit card bill came when I saw some of the stuff that we thought, what were we thinking? But that's another story for another time. Somehow, some way, when we have been in most need, we have been cared for. And not only does Jesus connect giving with rewards, he also connects prayer and rewards. And I'm not talking about the as you go through the day kind of prayers. You know, it's just like seeing a need. Oh, I see a need, I'm going to pray for it. I see a need, I'm going to pray for it. I see a need, I'm going to pray for it. No, he's talking about those get alone kind of prayer times. Those times when we set aside some significant time from our day. It's the kind of time that we don't have time for, though, because we're so busy. But what if you believed that God took your private prayers seriously? I mean, if you were to ask people who make set aside time for prayer in the morning part of their routine, they would tell you the reward is not that they get everything that they ask for. The reward is that they have this quiet assurance that God is with them. That they have this confidence and this peace about them. And that's exactly what Jesus modeled in the first 4 books of the New Testament. And I know he clearly wasn't as busy as we are. And Jesus had less important things on his mind than we do. That doesn't sound right. No, Jesus was probably more busy and definitely had more important things on his mind. So he had to also set aside time in his day to pray. Mark chapter 1, verse 35 is just one example in the Gospels about Jesus praying, and Mark responds and says, "In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up," Jesus got up, "and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed." He was too busy during the day just to see these needs and pray for them, see these needs and pray for them. Jesus knew for his own relationship with God that he had to get up very early in the morning while it was still dark. He had to go to a place by himself so he could be uninterrupted in order to pray. And here's why this is so critical to the development of your faith. Prayer is an expression of our dependence on God. Every day we are surrounded by circumstances that are so beyond our control that beginning the day alone in prayer is an expression of our faith. It is a personal reminder of how dependent we are on God, that we just can't even begin our day without talking with God first. Time alone praying to God, time alone reading our Bible informs our faith, and an uninformed faith is a dangerous faith. An unfocused faith becomes a legalistic faith when God calls us to a relational faith. I also know that discipline requires pre-decision. We don't just stumble upon discipline. For me, I know if I'm going to run in the morning, I have to lay out my clothes the night before. I know I'm running later today, so I've already got my backpack packed so I can go from the thing that I have to do after this, and then I can go run. I know that if I want to eat healthy, I have to pack my lunch in the morning. I need to bring it to work because sometimes it's not so healthy around here. We've got candy hidden everywhere in this place. Shit. I don't know. But we look for it every day. So I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to pre-decide for a month to give God your first dollars and your first minutes. If you really want to stretch your faith, start with a tithe. My wife and I had just started one Sunday giving 10% of our income. If that freaks you out, don't panic. Just pick a percentage. Give God your first dollars and then give God your first minutes. Just start the day with 15 minutes. You don't know what to do? I think right in the middle of your bulletin, mustard seed devotion. Just a way to give God your first minutes. Giving exposes our faith and prayer informs it. And both are a way that God develops our faith. And God is committed to growing our faith. And these are two ways that we can work along with God in this lifelong process. And there will be times when we don't feel like doing any of this. But just try it for a month. And here's what I can tell you will happen. These are personal, spiritual, and private disciplines that will become habits. And these habits will become a joy. And believe me, this joy will become I can't imagine my life without it. And I can say that because it's exactly what I went through. And I may not know the exact reward, but I know the benefit. Your confidence in God will grow. And your faith in God will deepen.